Are you looking for educational ideas for AI? Well, stay tuned. AI powered education is next.
Hi, I'm Casey Wacker. I'm a teacher in outstate Minnesota, and I am a master in communication and English language. And I teach high school students 9 through 12. And I also have a master's degree in administration. So I dabble a little bit in understanding how to lead within the realm of education, but specifically probably in technology, and AI is a part of that as well. And I'm here with
Sandra Weezer Matthews, and Casey teaches in a very much rural area, and now I teach in an urban area. And I have a doctorate degree in critical pedagogy, taking a look at education through the lens of race, class, and gender. And I teach in higher ed now. And we both have a passion for competitive speech and coaching staff members. And one of the things we really believe is really important right now is coaching staff and our learners with AI. So today we thought we'd be a little bit more focused on tools or a tool today. We often talk about both pedagogy or a tool, but today we're going to talk a little bit more about pedagogy and I guess tool, but a little bit of pedagogy in there. In our last conversation, we discussed what's happening with AI right now with leaders, government, and so forth. And it was just in the paper today that, again, talking about how President Biden, we talked about how he had formed a coalition of people. Didn't sound like there were a lot of educators there, but it certainly sounded like a lot of main leaders and corporations, military, and government, and so forth. But he just came out saying that he is all in when it comes to AI and education, and that he is creating resources for learners to have personalized learning. So that's just another example of that, talking about how important AI is.
Right. And that makes me think quite a bit. I want to know more about what sort of resources are being created. Like, I mean, my mind is like, okay, like what sort of influence are we going to have from corporations or businesses or for government? Kind of, I instantly go to regulation and like control, but maybe that's not at all. I don't know why I would do that when he uses the word resources.
Yeah.
But my mind kind of goes to that.
Yeah. Well, Saul Khan from Khan Academy, he was part of this article. Actually, it was mostly about him, and he really talks about that. He believes that we will have that personalization, that tutor, that individualization, along with really solid AI regulation, and also the education, leadership, national leadership said the same thing, that she believes that we'll have good, solid regulation. So I guess that means it's time to like go for it, and
Right.
really. So today, what we're going to talk about, again, is like that saving time that teachers need so much. Educators, we just don't have time. And there's so many like peripheral things that we help our learners with. I'm going to talk about one of them, and that's when they're just about done at the college level, they're looking for jobs. And so I'm going to talk about cover letter, and I know Casey's going to talk about another peripheral thing. It's not like what we're teaching, but it's time to write letters of reference so that your learners can get into colleges or get jobs, and same thing that happens with me. And that takes so much time. So Casey, why don't you talk a little bit about what you use, what was your process, and how is it saving you time, and how do you personalize it?
Okay, so I get approached to write letters of reference for whether students that are maybe in my classroom, but also my speech competitors, and other students just within our building who know, like, okay, Miss Wacker has this experience with me, and I would really like her to write about that because I think that's a positive experience in my high school career. So I love that they approached me for it, but I am a type of writer that I think a lot about it, and I spend days thinking ahead of like, what would I say? What's a scene that stands out in my mind about this kid and about our experience together? And I often actually go back thanks to Google Docs, and I have access to work that they've done for me in the past. And I read their stories, their essays, their speeches, and I'm like, okay, what do they care about, and how do I make sure that whoever is going to be reading this letter cares about that too? And so I sort of know this about myself, but I also don't always pay attention to my own style. Like, I don't really understand. I couldn't tell somebody like I write like this. And maybe I should know that. And so I went to ChatGPT because it's my best friend. We hang out all the time. And I asked it to review 3 letters that I have written in the past. So I took out, last names of students and whatever. I remained, first names because I felt like it was safe. Took out any other identifying information. And I put them in and I said, tell me what my style is. And it gave me like a bullet list of like, okay, of these 3, here's some common things that you do in your writing. And I kind of read through those and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I do that. I do kind of have that. And then I said, if I were to have you write a letter, what information would you need me to provide you to match my style or to write something to my style? And it gave me a whole list of things like, based on your type of writing, you like personal stories, you like to reference, specific work that they've done, activities that they were in, but not even just like the name of the activity. It's not just speech. It's like, what did they do in speech? And I'm like, okay. So I had a student who approached me and was like, I need a letter. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. So I put in all the things that it said that it would need to collect for me. And again, try to be as safe as possible about my students' information and withholding that really highly personal stuff. I put that in there, and then it busted out a letter, and I'm like, okay, I read through that. I copied it into a Google Doc, and that's when I modified it to make it personal for that student with, specific names and locations and stuff like that I didn't want ChatGPT to have. And I'm happy with the letter. I have not shared it with the student yet. I thought I might walk them through my process to see what they think about it and kind of help them maybe see it as a way to utilize it. Of course, I got worried too, thinking about like, oh, if I show the student, am I opening up the doors for them to create and use AI in a nefarious way, or in a way that's going to somehow make them feel sneaky? And I never want that. I want them just to feel good about their writing and to know that like I serve a purpose there. Yes, it's to save time, but also I needed to recognize something about my style that I don't think I'm not objective enough. I can't look at my own writing and necessarily do that the same way I could for a student or somebody else. So that's my experience. What do you think?
That's self-analysis though, just like the way you first started, like, what is it about? What's my writing? What kind of style? What do I do? And then you to put in 3 different examples for it to analyze. So that's just a whole step in itself of just really analyzing you and your writing. But then just all the time that it takes to write those letters, like you say, days, and then you worry, did you get what you needed in there? And is it right? And all that kind of thing. And then I think being really transparent with the learner is super important. I really do, because, as we know, they can buy references, they can create their own. It's no different. It might be a little bit easier with Chat or Bard or whoever we're working with when it comes to AI, but why not let them know? Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know, it'll be interesting conversation to have, but thinking about how much time that saves and this is not our teaching responsibilities. This is what we do because we coach, we work with learners, we care about them and they care about us, and they want that. They need that for colleges. They need that for jobs. Well, for my experience was just recently I was helping a learner come together with, and these are people getting their master's. So these are not just young people trying to figure out what they should do they're like, and they're like a cover letter, and it takes them so much time, and they might be student teaching, and that takes forever. And they're doing their TPA, and they have classes, and they have families. And so to write a cover letter for all these different schools that they're looking for work in is just so time consuming. And again, takes days for like one letter to get it the way it should be. So instead, again, took all the criteria. Here's your the job opening, took all the criteria, qualifications, what the background or maybe even mission or vision of that college or, that job was, and put that into, tried Bard, and ChatGPT actually came up with better letters, I felt. But anyway, so yeah. So I would experiment. There are quite a few of them out there, but experiment, see which letters look best. And then also put not just that, like the qualifications, but put that learner specific, things they've excelled at, what they believe in, all of that kind of criteria about them. And so the longest amount of time was putting together their own list of qualifications that they were good at. It was a simple copy and paste from the job post into chat. Then it was a simple, like they did have to take time to put all but once they have that accumulated, they can go back to the stream that is in chat and copy that anytime, or put that in a Google Doc and copy paste it in anytime, and boom, they go. So they're literally, instead of putting out like one letter to a job a day, like 5 or 6 a day. And that's, just that's in the time frame they only have between whatever else they're doing, right? Because they don't have to. And now the key is they're that much more opportunity to get the job because they had 6 times the number of applications that went out instead of 1.
Right. Well, and they can spend the time now to do the research that's necessary to prepare for an interview. The goal is to get a callback from that, right? That's the simple, easy, solution, I think, to a very complex problem of like, how do I get the job? Okay, you need to worry about once you get the job. How are you going to do it? And that's how you answer those questions in the interview, is to say, I already have this job. This is how I would do it. This is where it's going. And I think that students who are preparing for that next step need more time with that type of practice than they do writing the letter that simply is going to be skimmed over anyway. And it's a formality that people have to sort of do. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion on those sort of letters. That if it's a checking a box type of thing, I don't see how you wouldn't want to make that process more streamlined and just a little bit simpler for yourself.
Yeah. And I know too, then, as you do, that interview process, they have chat help and AI help for the actual practice with the interviews. So instead of just going on Google or YouTube and watching the latest channel about how to do great interviews, now you've actually got your own personalized bot asking you questions, going through that interview process and making you answer. And when you don't answer the way they feel it would be a good, then they're going to correct you. So there is a whole idea right here, right? Saving time, but making you more efficient, because again, as we said, there's not enough time in the day, but it's also about economy. Like if you don't have a good reference or references, are you going to get where you need to be? And if you don't get that cover letter done, you're not going to have that opportunity to apply for that job.
Right.
So.
Yeah, kind of interesting. We're going back to the tools that we've talked about before, Chat and Bard. These are what I love is it's free and it's accessible for everybody, and yet your ability to use them wisely is what's going to set you apart from all of the others. And that's these 2 things, the reference letter, the cover letter. These are 2 things that our learners need to know. They need to understand what works and how an effective piece of writing is going to open doors. And I think AI is more about opening doors than it is closing them.